Bienvenidos a Taboo Talk Latina Edition. Yo soy Cynthia.
And I'm Jeanette, and we're here to create a space for Latinas to be real, raw, and heard. This isn't just a podcast, it's nuestra comunidad, a place where we break taboos, rewrite generational patterns, and celebrate all the layers that make us mujeres poderosas.
Every episode, we hold space for stories that go deep, from culture to healing to the unspoken struggles of being a Latina in spaces that weren't built for us. And today's episode is for every mujer climbing that corporate ladder, trying to find her voice, own her power, and stay true to who she is.
We are so excited to welcome today's guest, founder of JRCC, leadership mentor, and a total powerhouse Latina. With almost 2 decades in the corporate game, she knows exactly what it means to navigate leadership as a woman of color and how to rewrite the rules. She's on a mission to help others do the same, leading with confidence, empathy, and authenticity. Jessica Rivera, bienvenida.
Thank you so much for having me. Yay!
Yes.
Thank you for joining us.
Jessica, we're so excited to have you with us today. Cuéntanos, who is Jessica behind all the titles? Take us back to your roots, your cultura, and the journey that led you to become the mujer poderosa that you are today.
That's such a loaded question. Without all the titles, I am a person who really loves people. I love to see people kind of just step into their power. I feel like many of us, even myself, even you see where I'm at now, I still feel like I'm playing a little too small. And I just want people to just like really step into who they are.
And I feel that happens a lot too, como Latinas, right? I'm sure you've encountered that yourself and also with clients, because that happened to us. We
Yeah.
always feel like we're not doing enough or we want to do more.
Yeah. And 100%. The first person that comes to mind is a woman who is a COO of a large bank and COO, large organization, and she still would struggle. And so I remember, we make up these stories in our minds around why why we don't fit, why we haven't gotten to where we are because we're Latina, because we don't have enough education, because we need another certificate, because. But even when you're there, there's still that negative voice playing in your mind. And it's really things like that get me so upset, but excited that Latinas are doing the work.
And I love that because it shows everything what you do also, that it's making a difference, right? Because sometimes, not sometimes, I feel like as women, we need each other, you
One,
know? And again, going back to nuestra cultura, it's so hard to navigate that because we feel like we can do so much more or we're not doing enough. And it's something that we battle with. And taking it back to growing up, did you always have that entrepreneurship within you?
I would say, if I'm being completely honest, I remember being a young girl. And when you're just like, what am I going to do when I grow up? Like that kind of vibe. And there were two things that I wanted to do. One was be an attorney, and the other one was like own a like hair salon or something, right? Which shows that there was some entrepreneurship thought process in my mind. Neither of those happened. But But I think, through conditioning and through life, I ended up just going like the safe route. The safe route, which is like get a job and stay at that job forever, was kind of not my mentality, but that was kind of what was instilled in me.
Yeah, of
And
course.
I love that you mentioned that because that happens to all of us at some point, right? It's like go and find a job. It's like the same thing. Find a man, get married, have kids. And it's that traditional life that's okay with, but some of us dream bigger, right? Or we feel like we can kind of twist things around. What if you have the kids before you get married, right? Or why do the corporate job? But no, find an entrepreneurship mindset that it's so hard within our cultura to find. I see so many women struggle with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we are conditioned to go the safe route, right? Because that's what they want they're trying, our family's trying to protect us. They
Yeah.
want you to be happy, to feel safe, to get the job, to, the white picket fence. And that's the programming that was programmed within them. And then it's programmed within us. And I see it more and more. People who have a culture around them of entrepreneurs tend to be entrepreneurs, right? They're more adapt, or they see the risk not the way we see it, right? They see it as like, okay, this is just like normal because my parents were entrepreneurs or the people around me were entrepreneurs. I have met this guy that's from China, and he was saying that in his town that he grew up in, 95% of the people are entrepreneurs. So he didn't know anything else. That was it.
That was kind of a good thing.
It's the way to go.
Yeah. Wow, yeah. By the way, I can see you doing both attorney and then so I can see yeah, I'm like, I can see you doing both. Yeah, and I love how you say like the conditioning of how we grow up because I grew up, Latina culture. My parents are both Dominican. And to them, it was like you get married and you have kids. And then I saw my cousins get married at a very young age. So for me, when I reached 17, 18, I was like, okay, I have
That
to,
pressure.
that's what, yeah, it was like the pressure.
Oh,
That's what I have to do next. Like I have to get married. And unfortunately, I fell into that trap and I got married at a very young age without even knowing who I wanted to be or who I was. Like I fully didn't know who is Cynthia. So that led, of course, to a failed marriage because I truly didn't know who I was. So that conditioning that we grow up with is so important because it kind of reflects, our lives, right? So that is just very important.
yeah. And I think when you think about the programming and the conditioning, to your point of not knowing who you are, many times we fail to even ask ourselves now, what do I want and what do I need right
Powerful.
now?
Yes.
And so the more we can ask ourselves like that question, that's the question I continue to ask myself. Well, what do I need in this moment? What do I need in this moment? What do I want right now? So that I can have clarity on it and then ask for what I want. Because we can't ask, and many times we don't ask for what we want because we don't know what we want. It reminds me of that notebook scene where he's like, what do you want to say?
Yeah.
That's us.
Yeah.
Many times that is us, right? Because we are taught to serve. We are
Yeah.
taught to serve our parents, to serve our man, to serve our children. We are not taught to serve ourselves and understand what do I want.
Yeah.
That's a question that I continue to ask myself and force myself. Okay, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? So that I can have clarity on it, and then I can ask for what I need.
Yeah. It's like that simple question, like, what do you want to eat for dinner, honey? And it's
God,
like,
never.
oh, I don't know. And it's like, no, what do you want?
Then I want this. No, never mind. I don't want that. Then what do you want?
It's
Yes.
very frustrating for the other person.
I know. Yeah.
But that is so true. And honestly, in nuestra cultura, especially growing up, we're taught like calladita te ves más bonita.
Yes.
So how did that messaging impact your confidence or your voice as you navigated leadership?
I always say that I won the parent pool because my parents are amazing, and they were not as traditional like that. They were more. My dad was definitely like a hippie vibes all day long. Like all the '70s music. Like he grew up in a space where he kind of had like a lot of different friends. Of course, he was Latino and listened to all the like salsa type music, but he had like a hippie thought process. And so it wasn't like we were able to have our own voice. We were able to speak up. We were able to give our opinion, maybe a little too much, if you ask me. And they let us kind of navigate the world and know, okay, we got your back. We're here, but we're going to allow you to do you and make your mistakes. So that's a beautiful thing.
It is.
And so, but I will say, even though it wasn't exactly like that in my household, it was like that around me. And so that conditioning is still there. And my mom didn't grow up that way, right? He kind of like was like, no, let them do this, no, let them do that. Right. Like he was a little bit more free. She was a little bit more traditional. So I don't think I got that message necessarily, but it was still ingrained when you think about school. You can't speak until spoken to. When you think about work, you can't. It's like you're asking permission for everything.
Yeah.
And that's just what we think is normal.
Yeah.
So I can't move until I ask for permission. And that culture is still ingrained. And there was still a little bit of that in my household, but not as much as I've seen it like outside. And so I love my parents gifted us that. And I think I was very outspoken, very, very outspoken. But it's interesting. I would be like telling everybody what it is, what exactly how I feel, like I needed to get it off my chest, or I would shut down and not say anything.
Either all in or all out. It's like
Yes.
the balance.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, beautiful that your parents, you were raised in a home that you were able to speak up, right? Because I remember from my end, my mom, she would always tell me that. She would take me with her to run errands and she would sit me down and she would be like, calladita te ves mejor, right? Like, meaning, like, don't bother me. I mean, this was back in the days
Well,
where,
that was definitely the message. We had to behave ourselves 100%.
yeah, yeah.
That messaging, those words, our words matter,
Yes,
right?
100%.
And so it would be like, behave, sure. And I definitely did that to my kids. I remember we were in the store one time and there was a kid acting up, and my son looks at me and I look at him and I'm like,
You give that look.
looking at them like that's crazy. Right. So yes, that definitely part of it. But I think the messaging and the words that we use play, they get ingrained, right? It's like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
if I want to be pretty, if I want to be liked, I need to be quiet.
Mhm. Yeah, I was just gonna say, so because my mom would always say that, and I know, like we said, she didn't mean it in like a mean word. She was just like, okay, siéntate ahí and please don't bug while I finish, my errands.
Yeah.
Then I go to college, get my big girl job, corporate America. And I was so terrified in front of these corporate meetings. I
Yeah.
would never speak up because in my mind, I was like, I'm not speaking up. Like, if I speak up, I'm going to get in trouble. Like, so I would never, it took years for me to finally, one of my ex boss finally pulled me over and said, you have so much to say, why don't you ever speak up in these meetings? I give you like the look and you never speak up. And that made me think and go back like, yeah, why don't I speak up? And it was those moments of me being a little girl, 5, 6, 7, of my mom telling me this. And like you said, words are so powerful because she didn't mean it, in a rude way, right? Or to traumatize me. She was just like, okay, I'm doing me. I'm trying to run an errand. Like, sit there and be quiet with your brother. And back then, there was no iPads or nothing. It was like, sit and please be quiet.
Look at your fingers
I was
count.
just gonna
Yeah.
say that. I was just gonna say that. Play some wars.
Good
But
times though, I gotta say.
oh, yeah,
Yeah.
great times.
Yeah,
But
no.
I think that also we fail to realize that our parents are living this life for the first time too.
Yes.
And they have their own trauma and their own everything and their own pressure, so much pressure to do it all. And so I think when we start humanizing people like our parents, like our teachers, like things like that from an earlier age, then it's like, oh, they're just living life for the first time too. So we have to give them a break.
Yeah, no,
No, and I
100.
like that perspective because going back to nuestra cultura, we tend to not move forward because we keep blaming our past. We keep blaming, I'm not successful because my mom and my dad were not entrepreneurs, or I lack in money because, of, yes, it's a huge factor, our mindset, right, with finance, because my mom was always saving and contando los kilos, right? So what can I expect for myself? And I feel that, and I love that you said that because that drags us. We can either look at it from a different perspective and we can take action for it. Like we don't have to continue those patterns, but it doesn't mean that we don't appreciate them or we don't care about them. It's just that we knew we can do so much more. So I love that you point that out.
Yeah. So what's interesting for me, what's coming up is like that victim mentality. And many times, at least for me, my own personal story is that I didn't think I was a victim because I'm strong, right? And I'm like doing this on my own and I was a single mom and blah, blah, blah. But was definitely blaming a lot on my ex, like because of that. And you did
Mm.
this and blah, blah, blah. And like the blame, the blame. And I remember one day she was like, you are such a victim. And I was like offended. Like, how dare you, the nerve of you, because I'm doing all of this and more, right? But what I really started thinking about when I started doing the work on myself was that is kind of a victim mentality, right? It is because at the end of the day, he was doing whatever he made him happy. And that may have hurt me and hurt my feelings, but who am I to say that he shouldn't be doing that? Because he showed me who he was. I chose to stay, or I chose to not, or my choices were. My choices were my choices.
Mm.
Right. And so when I started taking that power back and saying all those things are true, and all those things may have been messed up, but the truth is I played a part. And how do I take my power back and stop blaming him and trying to hold him accountable because we'll be in that hamster wheel forever
Yeah.
Yeah.
because everybody's going to do whatever they want to do. How about let me just hold myself accountable? Let me just soften that, right? Because I was always like hard, like I'm going to tell you and I'm going to do and I'm going to show and I'm going to prove. And when I started softening that up a little bit, I felt better on the inside, right? I felt better. My relationship with my ex got a million times better because I wasn't like looking to blame all the time and looking to say, oh, well, if you wouldn't have done this, that wouldn't have happened, right? I was not doing any of that anymore. I forget about our relationship. I felt better on the inside. And so I think there's so much power in realizing, wait, am I playing the victim?
Mm.
How can I take my power back? How can I realize, okay, that is kind of where I contributed to that relationship in a negative light, and then flip it to make sure, make your power your pain your purpose.
You
Mm.
worded it perfectly. The
Yeah.
victim mentality. And I've heard that over and over again from different coaches and on stage. And it's something that it's really hard for people to admit, right? Or to realize
It's
because
challenging. It's
we tend to always blame everyone. Oh no, we broke up because of them, or we did this because of them. It's like, no, but we don't take that ownership that sometimes it's our fault too that we don't make those changes.
yeah, yeah. And the thing is, it's challenging because it's all true. It is true that did happen. That was messed up. It was all those things. But did you go to therapy to try and figure that out? At what point do you take ownership, even with your parents? Like, okay, now I know better. Now I can do better.
Yeah. No, 100%. And, still talking about, speaking up. I know so many Latinas struggle with speaking up because we don't want to come off as problemática or, oh, girl, you're too much. So, what advice would you give to someone who's still trying to learn and find her own voice?
Without
Well,
the guilt.
I'll say this.
That's important.
I think that even I'm still trying to find my voice, right? There's still a new level to me finding my voice. Like, I feel like it never ends. But I was speaking with a client just yesterday, and I was saying, you know what I want for us? We were talking about a situation where she's like, I didn't speak up because I didn't want to hurt that person's feelings because they're going to think fill in the blank. And I said, you know what I really, really want for all of us is for us to stop caring about what other people think. Meaning, you don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but let's say, Cynthia, I'm telling a story and you're like, that's not how I remember it. I remember XYZ. No problem. I'm feeling like this is my memory of it, right? It's like I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I'm going to tell you how I see it from my perspective. And that doesn't mean that I'm not open to other perspectives, but I'm going to tell you the way I see it. And I feel like when we do that, there are stories that we make up in our head that then actually start manifesting. Right now, the relationship is not the way it used to because now you're talking to me about a situation, but you won't speak to the person. And I'm like, I want us to like get out of high school.
Get out of high school. I love it.
Michael,
Yes.
can we get it, please? Because in corporate spaces, it's like high school 2.0. In
I'm
friendships,
living it
we're
now.
still in high but it's so true and it's so frustrating. But I feel like one person, you, me, Cynthia, Jeanette, and we can all be the one person that starts making the change by saying whatever it is that's on our mind in the most kind and loving way. That's the key, right? What's the energy behind it? But I'm like, let's start having these real conversations. And most of the time, by the way, what we're holding back on, it's like nothing. None of this stuff is that big of a deal. When you really, really think about it, like nobody, 9 out of 10 times, we're not talking about I hurt your kid. We're talking about, Jeanette and I went to lunch and we didn't want to tell you because we don't want to hurt your feelings.
Yeah,
Right.
we're in our own head, right? And it goes back to that guilt or that mindset, right? That we constantly think that people are going to judge us or what are they going to think or like we're overthinking. It's like when, and I'm sure you guys can relate, right? When you want to launch something and you're like overthinking and you're putting all these pieces together in your own head and then you finally launch and you're like, oh my gosh, it feels
Yeah.
great. That's it, right? And it was nothing like you imagined because we tend to do that. So true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
funny that you say that because I wanna share some of my thought process. Sometimes I don't speak up because I rather be uncomfortable than the person feeling uncomfortable. Like, I'd rather feel uncomfortable and like have all the questions than me speaking up. Like, let's say I don't like confrontation and I'm trying to work through it. So I'm like, I'd rather keep it to myself rather than make you feel uncomfortable. Like, I'll feel it rather than have you feel it and me see it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes
So
sense.
I'm in
We
that
talk, can we talk,
stage.
can we unpack this?
Yeah, I know.
Let's do it.
This is like what I do. So I would say, and I'm going to say this with all the love possible. So I would say that it's a little bit of an excuse, and I'll tell you why, because you're uncomfortable either way. Whether you speak up or you don't speak up, you're uncomfortable.
Yes.
So it's kind of like going to the gym, right? So I don't like going to the gym, but I go. And so I hate getting there. But when I leave there, I feel so, right. And so if you would just have that conversation, it will feel uncomfortable in the moment. But after the fact, you'll probably feel better versus you don't have the conversation, you're uncomfortable, and then you say uncomfortable because that thing still lives in there.
Yes.
It still lives in there. And so I think that when we also reframe it from having difficult conversations or whatever it is to saying, you know what, I just want to speak my truth. I just want to invite you to a conversation. I just want to let you know my perspective. Then it feels less heavy. But we're thinking, and many times we label difficult conversations that are not difficult topics,
Yeah, no, 100%.
right? So I would challenge you, I would challenge you to when you have that uncomfortable feeling, really ask yourself, what are you uncomfortable about? Because sometimes we need to unpack it for ourselves in our minds. Like, what exactly am I feeling here and why? And if you have an uncomfortable conversation that you know is looming, I would tell you to write it out, and really ask yourself, what do I want that other person to feel at the end of this conversation? And what do I want to feel? Right? When you have clarity around what you want the other person to feel, when things start going left in the middle, you can literally stop yourself and say, you know what? Hang on a second. This is not the way I want it to go. I actually want you to feel super heard. I want you to feel blah, blah, blah. I want us to feel at the end of the conversation X, and it's not going the way I chose. So can we reset?
I'm assuming, Jessica, and I'm sure maybe you can agree that the more that we do that, it gets better,
It
right?
gets easier, yeah.
Easier.
100% gets better, it gets easier. You really that's part of when we talk about finding your voice, that's a huge part of it. Giving your perspective, saying your perspective. And by the way, whether it be in a personal relationship or at work, or if you are an entrepreneur, your personal perspective will get you further every single time.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that. And I had a question for you because I know that the workplace, especially for Latinas, right? We tend to shrink as we've been discussing from earlier. So, what advice would you give to anyone overall, but specific a Latina like Cynthia, right? It's having problems and was having problems like speaking up in the workplace. What advice
Yeah.
do you have for them so they don't shrink and they can become the person they're meant to be?
Well, I think it really starts with who do I want to be? Right? Who do I want to be? And so, whether you're a Latina that feels like, oh, I don't have no problem telling everybody what to do, right? There's that person at work.
Yeah,
That doesn't work either. And then there's the person who's like, you know what? Let me just let them get their space. I don't want to step on toes. Like that person too. That doesn't work either.
that's me.
That
Yeah.
doesn't work either.
That's not working.
So I would say, like, who do I want to be? That's the first step. I would say pick 3 words, and really that's your brand. What do you want your brand to represent? So for me, I was more of the, like, aggressive person. I was in sales. I was in corporate sales, and so I was pretty aggressive. They sometimes people would be afraid to come and talk to me because 'cause I'm like, "No, that's not it." Right? And I spoke with a period at the end of every sentence.
Yeah.
Even if I didn't, and many times I didn't want to do that, and I didn't think I was doing that, but that's how it came across. And so when I started thinking about, well, what do I want to be known as? Like, what do I want people to say about me when I'm not in the room? And I wanted them to feel warm, right? So that what does that look like in action? I wanted them to know I knew what I was talking about. Like I am going to tell you what it is, and I'm going to give you my perspective, but in a nice and kind, loving way. So really transparent, right? I would consider that transparent. So it was like I wanted to be authentic. So what does that look like in action? Transparent, authenticity, and warm. So what does that look like in action? So you write those three, you know, things that you want to be known as. What do you want people to think and feel when you leave the room? And then what are the actions attached to each of those words? And so if I want people to think I'm warm, then I'm probably looking at you in the eye. I'm probably asking questions about you. I'm probably really trying to remember and think, oh, how many kids do you have? Like, what's making you excited right now? What are you working on? How can I help you? Right? Things like that. Also, asking for help. If I ask one of you for help, we're building trust right away because you're like, oh, she trusts me.
Yeah.
And that's also part of vulnerability. So they all kind of go into each other, right? So it's like the second I'm asking you for help, I'm being vulnerable and I'm building trust. And I'm building warmth there too, because it's like, oh, the trust and the warmth. So really understanding what are those actions that you can take. And they could be small. So if I want to be warm, it could be simply sending you an email like, great job. And being super specific. Great job on getting clients to the event yesterday. Not great job on that event yesterday. It's being really, really specific. Great job on entertaining, or like being really, really granular on what you think they did a good job on. It could be that simple and easy to build those blocks. But you really have to decide, make a decision. What are the three words I want to be known for, and what are the actions I'm going to attach to those words to hold yourself accountable?
It's that powerful.
Yeah, I love that. I'm taking notes. And there's this unspoken pressure that, of course, we all feel to prove ourselves 10 times more just to be seen. As a Latina leader, how do you learn to command a room without losing your realness?
Yeah. So I don't think we've realized that the most powerful thing you can do is be vulnerable. Because the second you become vulnerable, people automatically will attach to you. 100%. So I think that old kind of command and control energy, you get attention and you command a room for a moment. But when you are authentic and when you are in a mindset of service, like how can I help you, and how can I be interested in you, right? You want to be interested versus interesting. It's not about me, it's about you. Even when I do large workshops or keynotes with people, it's about the audience. It's not about me. It's about what can I give to you. And so when you are like that, that's how you really command a room. When you're speaking your truth, when you are as authentic as you could possibly be in the moment, right? And that could mean for me, I slip out a curse. That could mean for me, I cry in a room of a lot of people. That could mean for me that I'm telling you I messed up or I was great or whatever. I do this really well, but I mess up in this area over here. And so it's really about not and there's another problem, we like to be humble, but I want everybody to speak about their greatness in a way that is inviting to others. And so commanding a room has less to do with command and it has more to do with authenticity and vulnerability.
It's powerful. And I'm sure that you've come across people, including ourselves. Again, I've been there with imposter syndrome because I know we've discussed that a lot.
Hmm.
Right? So what advice would you give, or you give to your clients, or you give someone right now that is going through imposter syndrome and they don't even realize it? Because some of
Yeah.
us are like, I'm not going through it, like they never heard of it, and they are.
Yeah. I would say whenever you're in a room and you feel like I'm not good at that, they're so much better than me at that, then that's probably a little bit of imposter syndrome there. But what I would tell you to do is what I used to do in corporate when I was in corporate. I started creating this what I call the highlight reel for myself, which is just a Word doc. And then I had my team do it. And so what I would do, especially if you're in corporate, what I want you to do is take your like core values or competencies or whatever it is that you have in your company. Pick one, maybe two that you want to improve on. Then every month, I'm writing the actions, the value, and the impact I have made toward this thing. So, for example, one of mine that I worked on was, I think one of our companies was Straight Talk. Now, I never had a problem straight talking, but I wanted to come off more tactical, more giving feedback in a way that they could receive it. And so every month I would write down, this is what I did. I gave my perspective to another department head on whatever topic, and we came to an agreement or whatever, something like that, right? And I would just two or three bullet points each month. So then when I have my one-on-one with my boss, I'm letting him know, "Oh, this is what I'm working on, and this is the impact that I'm making, and this is the value that I'm bringing. So the other department head and I, we resolved X, Y, and Z, or I'm building a relationship in this area." And so then it's like very easy for you to then, the way I used to look at it, but by the time year end came, it was almost like you had to prove to me that I wasn't like whatever the perfect number is, like a 5 or a 4 or whatever it is, because we've all year we've talked about it. It's almost like you have a mini year end review every single month with your one on one with your boss. And then I had my team do it to me.
Mm,
And it made my life
love it.
so much easier because when they weren't doing, number one, when they were doing what they were supposed to do, now they're bragging on themselves without bragging on themselves, right? And I'm able to like pat them on the back, which leaders forget because they have so much to do. So now it's perfect. Then when they weren't doing what they were supposed to do, those difficult conversations were so easy because we're having it every single month. And it's like, wait a minute, you said you were going to do this. What happened? So if they're in corporate, I think that's a great way to, number one, remind yourself of all of the value and impact you're doing. And then if you have direct reports, have them do it to you.
I love it. Yeah. I love that strategy. Because then, like you said, the conversation gets easier because we do these year end reviews. And it's always like dreadful to sit in that big room and have that person across from you. But when you're doing it every month, like you said, and they know they have to, they're achieving certain things, goals that they set themselves, the conversation, I agree, becomes so much more easier. Yeah.
So much easier. And I also think that asking the right questions. So if you are the employee, let's say, it's like, hey, how did you think that project went? And let them tell you, oh my God, you did an amazing job.
I think that goes unnoticed a lot in corporate America, right? Like you said, like the leadership, they're too busy. It's not that they don't care. They have so many employers and it's just so hard for them to continue to pat people on the back. But then you also have to stand up, speak up, and be recognized and be heard and know that again, we always blame others. And I think that's a hard thing that we do. And not just as Latina, as women and overall that wherever we go, we're always blaming or pointing fingers when we can just sit down for a minute and see how we can figure it out or how we can make it work.
Well, I think the thought process, at least a lot of people that I know, and for me was like, it's my boss's responsibility to like lift me up.
Yes.
Yeah.
And your boss has a lot going on.
Yeah.
So it's your responsibility to remind them of all of the great things that you are doing. Again, when you put it back in your own hands, that's where the power lies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Make it so much
100%.
easier.
And let's talk about now double standard. So being called bossy instead of a leader and too emotional instead of too passionate. How do you navigate this while still showing up fully as yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. So I definitely got all of that. Like I was called aggressive. I was called to New York because my company, I was remote. So I led teams remotely. And I ran a $4 billion organization. So it was a lot. But I got all of those labels. I was too New York, I was too this, I was too that. So what I learned was that, again, when I softened a little bit, softened the messaging, understood the words, understood how I want to make other people feel, I actually said more of what was on my mind. And it was received a million times better. And I remember specifically one in the beginning when I was like, testing, all of this is testing. And I was trying to like figure out what's the wording and what do I want to say and how do I want people to feel. And I was prepared to go to this meeting and we're in this meeting. And it was two different departments. So it was like sales and I don't know, whatever other department. And I was pushing back. And we come out of that meeting and one of my counterparts says, who was that girl in there? Because I've never met her. You pushed back in a way that was like you really, really pushed back hard, but it was in a way that was so kind and so nice. And like you really articulated your point so calmly that everybody was able to receive it. Like, and it was bold and it was brave. And so I was like, it's working. It's working. But I think I also, when I say softened, like what does soften even mean? So number one, I really wanted to understand how I want to make the other person feel. Right? So I didn't want them to feel like, "Oh, this is a terrible idea." I wanted them to feel like, "Okay, I'm here to collaborate with you, but I just see things from another side." Right? I wanted I wanted to be thought provoking. I wanted them to kind of think about that how this process is affecting the bigger picture. And most importantly, I wasn't attached to the outcome. I wasn't attached to them or somebody or anybody agreeing with me. I wanted to just put it out there. You guys do whatever you want with it. But my thought process is X, Y, and Z. That's all. And when I started doing that, everything becomes softer or lighter because before it would be like, no, I'm proving to you, no, 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 I'm trying to bring you to my side. And that's where we get messed up in a lot of things because I'm over here trying to convince you. And what happens when you're trying to convince somebody of something? They're standing their ground and you're standing yours.
Yeah.
And you could know. And so the more I was like, hey, I'm just giving you my opinion. I'm just telling you how I see it. I'm just want to give another perspective. But, I'm okay with whatever the outcome is. Then everything felt a lot softer. And people were like really gravitating to me even more. And that's what happens now, right? Even now in my coaching practice and when I'm doing consulting, it's like, I'm going to give you the different perspectives. I'm going to tell you the different areas, the avenues you can go, but you make the decision for you. You are the expert on you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they don't feel attacked or intimidated. So I love that. And once you don't feel that, like you said, it feels warm.
Yeah, that
And
was powerful.
it builds a psychological safety,
Yeah.
right? It builds that psychological safety when it's like, I don't feel like I'm gonna get judged. I don't feel like she's gonna try to pull me to another side.
Mhm.
I don't feel like she's gonna force me to think the way she thinks, right? No, you're the expert on you. And even when I ran that sales organization, I would tell my team members like, you're the expert on your market. I don't know your market better than you. We can go through ideas and I can give you suggestions, but you're the expert, so you have to make the decision.
I
That
love
is
it.
so true. And again, it's from the perspective that not everybody I feel like we have it within us, but we don't develop it. And if once we do, we can be so powerful, whether it's in corporate America, in our career, in our
In our
coaching,
relationships.
in the relationships, everything makes a difference. I love that approach. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, and we can go on and talk forever with you because we love what you're doing. But we have our last segment. So now, girl, we can't let you go without this iconic part of our show. What would your tia chismosa say about the mujer you've become today?
I'm trying to think what she actually tells me these days. I think that she would probably she is proud, super proud. And I think that many people in my family are like shocked because I was terrible at public speaking. So when they see me like online or they're seeing me doing these things, I was terrible at I wouldn't even give a toast at a family function.
Well, I'm shocked hearing you say that. Wow.
I would not even give a toast at a family function. And when I tell you that what I like it feels like it was yesterday, it was not that long ago. And I think that, they're proud. I think many people saw it within me before I saw it within myself. And she'd be just like, yeah, you're killing it.
And that's beautiful because today, not only do you share your story and your words of wisdom with us, but it's truly an inspiration, right? To see what you've become and us without knowing you because we all met online, right? Which is beautiful, the power of social media. But to see and give people the opportunity and the belief that they can evolve, right? They can become the person they're meant to be. They
Yeah.
can own spaces
Yeah.
and use their voice more often because you've been there before. Because I'm sure people see you and they're like, oh my God, Jessica, I'm sure you had this within you like for years or since you were little.
And that's why I make it a point to say that and mention that because they're always like, "Oh, but you're natural at it." No, I'm not. I'm not. I'm not a natural at any of this. I'm not a natural at any of it. I built the skills because I wanted to be different because I didn't like the results that I was getting. When you look at the results, if you don't have the relationships you want better relationships, you want more accolades, you want more recognition, you want more of those things, then it's within you to make that happen.
Thank you for showing us, Casita, that we can show up as leaders, as Latinas, as our true self, because it is inspiring to hear, especially from your perspective as a coach, and this is what you do for a living, that you also go through it. And you still do at times, but you're confident and your glow is just out of this world. So thank
Oh,
you
thank
again for joining us.
Yes, and of course, before we close, let our comunidad know what's next for you. Any project, resources, or offerings that you want to share, shout out all your platforms. And of course, let us know about your retreat. You just had one, and I think you're having one next year. So please fill us all in.
Yeah, so I do one international retreat every year. And this year it was Marrakesh. We went to Morocco, which is Northern Africa. And it is such a magical place. I've been to Africa before, but I was in South Africa and I need to go back to Morocco. I mean, I need to go back to everywhere, but it is a magical place because it looks so old. It's almost like you feel like Jesus was definitely walking around here at some point, right? But it's just beautiful and it has like this new age feel, this old feel, and it feels spiritually connected. It feels so magical. On my retreats, I really get people out of their comfort zone. So it's kind of the intersection between personal, professional, and spiritual healing because we have traumas around all of it. And I feel for me personally, if one of those areas are lacking, then I feel like I'm lacking, right? There's something off. And so the more we can develop that, what does it look like for me to show up personally, professionally, and how can I be more connected spiritually? To me, that's where we really start stepping into who the heck we are. And we get out of our comfort zone. And I like to go on excursions. So we'll do an excursion where, again, it's getting people out of their comfort zone. This year we went on a hot air balloon. I'm definitely afraid of heights.
Me too.
So I'm part of it, right? And we did ATVs, we got on camels, and then we cried a lot. Lots of that's where the power lies, that vulnerability, that being able to talk about the things that we don't typically talk about. And a lot of connecting, a lot of love, a lot of connection and love. And next year we'll be going to El Salvador. And El Salvador, for those of you who don't know, is like the new Costa Rica. I did have one in Costa Rica, and this this place is also very spiritually connected. We will do things like we go into a sweat lodge and we'll do some inner child healing for anybody who knows what that is. But it's a lot of breath work and connecting with self. And we'll be on the beach. I wanted to go back to a beach, so we'll be on the beach, and then the forest is behind us, and we're in tree houses, and it's going to be
Awesome.
this very special part about this one in El Salvador is that there is going to be a community service aspect. So I'm big into community service. I sit on the board on the leadership council for Big Brothers Big Sisters of Long Island.
Oh, beautiful.
And, I'm big into mentorship and being part of the community. So in El Salvador, we will be empowering the local women.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for
Yeah,
doing that. That's wonderful.
amazing.
That is. And of course, we're going to be adding to the show note all the links you provided. So whoever wants to join you at your retreats or connect with you, get to know you in a more personal level, they can reach out to you. Again, thank you for joining us. Jessica, it's been such an honor to have you here with us and for saying yes to being part of The Voice, right? To get to be part of a platform that continues to uplift us Latinas. So before we wrap up, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, y como siempre. We'll see you next time on Taboo Talks Latina Edition, where we keep breaking cycles, breaking silence, and breaking taboos.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you, Jessica.
Bye.